Hi everybody, and welcome to another A+ 1102 course with a bunch of questions. This time they're not going to be at the end. I'm going to do it section by section. So I'm going to go through the boot methods, give you questions on that, go through the types of installations, give you questions on that, go through the partitioning, give you questions on that, etc. So the questions will be after that particular section, and we're going to do this whole exam objective in the one video. Let's get to it. The first one is boot methods. So first of all, what does that mean? It's just a method of booting your operating system. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. You can do it through USB, optical media, which is like a disc, just the discs that you used to insert and it would read and spin around, over the network, through a solid state or a flash drive, over the internet, external or hot swappable drive, and an internal hard drive via a specific partition on that. So it's just a matter of these are the different ways you can boot your OS, and you need to know what those options are and roughly how you might go about doing that. So the first one is USB. We all know what a USB stick is. You can create a bootable USB drive using the operating system's vendor tools and boot from that USB. You just plug it in and boot from the USB, right? Largely, that's what you're going to need to know. Other than that, think about booting and what you might have talked about in your 1101 exam if you took that previously. You have to think about the boot order. So one of the main troubleshooting things in the 1101, or one that you were likely to come across, was if you had plugged in a USB, it might have changed the boot order in the BIOS so that it's now trying to boot from that USB. So you'd have to go in and change that boot order so that you're not booting from the USB. So similarly, if you plug in your bootable USB, you may need to configure your device to actually be booting from that USB drive so it's not trying to boot from somewhere else, right? But basically, you can boot from a USB drive. That's largely what you need to know for your exam. Optical media, you can also boot from a traditional CD or DVD. It may be less convenient than a USB drive due to the physical media requirement. So, not a lot of devices these days really have the capacity to read discs. A lot of devices have really moved on from that. It's kind of an older thing. You may need to purchase a disc reader that comes separate to your device itself. It is still supported by many operating systems and hardware, especially older systems. So maybe you may want to try to use this if you're going to try and install an operating system or boot an operating system for an older system that still contains a drive like this. But generally, it's pretty niche. You probably won't see this happening too often. So of course, same thing as the USB. You're just going to insert a bootable. So you're going to insert a CD or DVD that contains the OS installation files and just boot from there. Configure your device to boot from there. That's largely it for that one. You can also boot over the network, right? So it does require network infrastructure and server setup with the installation image, and it's useful for deploying operating system installations to multiple machines simultaneously. So this one's where we start to differentiate a bit. We may want to boot over the network. Maybe we're an administrator that's operating in a environment where you have lots of devices within a company, and it's your responsibility to upload or to get the operating system running, to boot the operating system on these devices. Now you can do that to all of these devices from the comfort of your one office by booting over the network. So that may be something that you want to do in that situation, but you have to think about a few things. There are requirements. You need a network server. So you need a server with the target operating system image that is accessible on your network. So you have to make sure that's there. You also need something called PXE support, or PXE support, but it's pronounced PXE support, which is when your computer's network adapter and BIOS firmware need to support pre-boot execution environment, which is a network booting protocol. So if you want to boot over the network, you do need to make sure you have PXE support. And then of course, network configuration. Your computer's network settings should be configured to obtain an IP address and locate the network boot server. So there's some extra kind of complicated steps there. It's a little more complex than booting, just sticking in a USB or DVD. But when you think about the benefits of that, saving the time that it would take to walk around to every individual computer around your office, it's probably going to be worth it, right? So those are the kind of things you want to think about when you get a question on your exam asking you, how do you boot? What should you boot? What method should you use, etc. Solid state or flash drive. So similar to USB, a bootable flash drive can be used for installation. It offers faster boot times compared to traditional hard drives and may have limited storage capacity when compared to other methods. So same thing, create a bootable flash drive using the operating system vendor tools, insert it and boot from it, right? Make sure that the boot order is prioritized in the BIOS. Same kind of concept with any kind of physical media. right? It's always going to be the same. Just know that you can do it through these options. That's pretty much going to be what you need to know. Internet-based. Some operating systems allow direct download and installation from the internet. So this requires a stable internet connection. So if you don't have internet connection, obviously not an option, and sufficient bandwidth. It may not be suitable for all systems or network environments. So you are going to need to enable network booting. So through your BIOS settings, you'll need to do that, and you'll need to enable network booting if it is supported, right? So one, is it supported? And two, make sure you have actually enabled it through the BIOS. You'll need to configure your network. You need to configure your computer to obtain an IP address via a DHCP server and can access the network. So that just translates in human language to you need to make sure you have an internet connection, essentially, and you have an IP address that can access the outside network. So if you have a link local address, or you're not able to access outside of your local area network, you're not going to be able to do this. And then you'll need, again, PXE support. A server on your network needs to host the OS image and be configured for network booting protocols. So same kind of thing, right? You're doing it over the network, only this time, instead of being an administrator that's kind of pushing it out to all of these multiple devices, you are essentially reaching out to the internet and downloading it using your specific device, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Again, there's a lot here in this one, so I'm going to briefly go over it. You may have to do some additional research, but it's enough to really honestly get you through the exam as far as I'm concerned, and that's my main goal. The next one is an external or hot swappable drive. So similar to internal drives, external drives can be used for booting if configured directly. So an external drive, right, we're thinking any kind of drive that you plug in but is external to your system, really is what that means. So same thing, you would plug it in and make sure that it has the appropriate OS on there and it's bootable, and you'd set your BIOS to boot it. Other than that, it's going to be the same idea as the USB, etc. Only instead of a USB, it's a bootable drive that's external to your device. Okay, so it's mostly going to be the same other than that. And of course, internal hard drive, you can boot from your internal hard drive. It specifies partition. So existing hard drives can be partitioned to create a separate bootable space for a new OS. You can actually specifically set up a partition on your currently existing internal hard drive to hold an operating system that you can boot, right? So that does require careful planning and execution to avoid data loss. Don't just play around with it. You might mess up your system, essentially, right? Be careful with it, but it is an option. It is an option there. So a brief rundown on how you can go about making sure you're choosing the right boot method. First of all, convenience, USB drives and optical media. They're simple, they're portable, right? You can take it from one go to the other, super convenient. Network efficiency, network booting is ideal for deploying across massive amounts of machines if you're an administrator, right? Or if you're doing a remote installation, that would be good, but you got to have that good internet connection. Speed, solid state drives provide a faster boot time when compared to traditional hard drives. So speed is of the essence. Maybe that's what you might want to go with. Internet availability, internet-based installations do require a reliable internet connection, but if you don't have physical media and you do have an internet connection, that might be a good way to go. Existing hardware, do you have system hardware which will support the specific boot methods that you need? That's going to be the key one. So for your exam, you'll probably get a question that will tell you, hey, here's what you have, here's the scenario you're in, what boot method should you use based on this? And hopefully you should be able to work it out based on what we talked about today. Now let's get into some questions for the exam. We'll get straight into it. The first one is, you suspect a hardware failure on your laptop's internal hard drive. The laptop won't boot normally and you hear unusual clicking sounds from the drive. Your primary goal is to recover any critical data you can before attempting repairs. You have these resources available: a bootable USB drive containing a data recovery software suite, a set of recovery DVDs provided by the laptop manufacturer, a high-speed internet connection, and an external hard drive with enough free space to store your recovered data. What is the most appropriate boot method to attempt data recovery? That's a lot. A, booting from the internal hard drive. B, using the recovery DVDs. C, booting from the USB drive. Or D, downloading the data recovery software over the internet. Your answer coming in 3, 2, 1. You're probably going to need to pause the video to think about it, so please do that. Your answer is C, booting from the USB drive. So think about what this question is asking. We want to boot and recover any data we can before we attempt to recover any critical data you can before attempting. So think about what this question is asking. We want to boot in and recover any critical data that we can before attempting repairs. So it's not about repairing, it's about trying to get what we can possibly get out of our system, and not necessarily repairing. So just look at the final sentence. That's where the key question comes in. What is the most appropriate boot method to attempt data recovery? So what is the most appropriate boot method in this scenario based on what we have? We have a bootable USB drive that contains a data recovery software suite. Okay, so it is bootable and it has data recovery software suite. That has pretty much what we need, right? A set of recovery DVDs provided, that's great. It's recovery DVDs, but it's nothing about it being bootable. It doesn't tell us anything about whether it has the bootable OS on there. Recovery is good, but based on what it's given us, we can't actually boot using that. A high-speed internet connection, we could potentially do a internet boot, but think about the options provided here. Booting from the USB drive, we can boot, and it has a data recovery suite. So that's both the best of both worlds in relation to what we need. And then an external hard drive with enough free space to store your recovered data. So we could certainly transfer the data onto that hard drive if we can even get the data off of the hard drive. It's clicking, it's not looking good, but just assuming best case scenario, I suppose. But again, it's nothing about booting. So in reality, you'd probably use like a combination of some of these, but these are the option that we've been given. And out of those given options, booting from the USB is best because it is bootable and it has data recovery software on there. So that's pretty much the best of both worlds, and that's everything we need to do. So that was a really tricky, complicated one. Hopefully that made sense, but we'll try another one. We'll see how we go. This one reads, you've just finished building a new custom PC. The system doesn't have an operating system installed yet. You have the following options available. A bootable device, sorry, I'll start again. A bootable USB drive containing the desired operating system installation files, the original installation DVD that came with a separate pre-built computer you own, an external hard drive containing the operating system installation files that have been copied from another computer, or a high-speed internet connection. Which method is the most suitable for installing the operating system on your new custom PC? A, using the installation DVD. B, booting from the external hard drive. C, booting from the internet. Or D, booting from the bootable USB drive. Your answer in 3, 2, 1. That was another big one, I know. Pause the video if you need more time. Your answer is D, booting from the bootable USB drive. So just take a look. A bootable USB drive containing the desired operating system installation file. So it's bootable and it has the desired ones. All of these other ones, or at least these two, have installation files that are for something else. We have a custom PC. We have specific operating system installation files that we need. We don't really want something that comes with a separate pre-built. Sorry, the DVD came for a pre-built computer we own. It's not specifically designed for what we want, right? It's like something that came with another one. An external drive containing the operating system installation files that have been copied from another computer. So it's copied from another computer. These two, it could work, but we're looking for the best possible option. A bootable USB drive has the desired operating system installation file. So it's exactly what we're looking for. It was really just like the devil's in the details with this one. So these are the kind of questions that you might get on your exam, okay? I'll do my pitch at the end, but yes, my 1102 learning guide is available at journeytocyber.com, which is basically where all this is from. If you like what you see in this video, it's all going to be there. That being said, we're going to move on to the next one, which is types of installations now, okay? We're going to do types of installations. Let's see how we go. Let's go ahead and get straight into it, starting with an upgrade. So upgrade, most of us intuitively know what an upgrade means, right? You're applying updates and new features to an existing operating system installation. So you already have an OS installed and you are upgrading that operating system. You're applying an update with new features that will add on top of your already existing operating system. So what this does, it preserves user data, settings, and applications. You're not going to have to back everything up and then reinstall it because it's going to be empty. No, it's going to preserve everything you had prior to that upgrade, and it is the recommended method for keeping your operating system up to date and secure. Okay, so that is an upgrade. The next one is a recovery partition. So within on a partition on your drive, you have a original factory operating system image on a partition on your drive. What a recovery partition does is it reinstalls that from that dedicated partition on the drive. So you're reinstalling it from that partition. So it restores the system to its original state, erasing all user data and settings, and it's useful for troubleshooting major system issues or reverting to a known good configuration. So, if you've tried troubleshooting and you can't figure it out, and you've just said, you know what, we need to restore to how this was previously, restore to how we have it on that drive partition. We'll go back to how we had it, we'll back up our data, and we'll reinstall that so we're back to how we were, and we'll just get all of our data back in there. So obviously you're going to have to back up your data before you do that one, absolutely. So just like these pictures, you're going from this fully customized device with all of these personalized settings, really excited, and you're going back to your factory default settings. Just like this guy's gone to his factory default settings with no emotions, that's what you're doing with a recovery partition. Now, you have a clean install, which is similar concept. This is installing a completely fresh copy of the operating system, which wipes the entire drive. So it erases all data, settings, and applications. It's useful for starting fresh with a clean system or installing a different operating system altogether. And remember, we went through the times where you might want to consider an upgrade versus a clean install in one of the earlier videos that we did, one of the earlier learning exam objectives. I think it was even 1.1 or 1.2. Sorry, it was the third dot point of 1.1. That's right. Okay, so that's what a clean install is. And then you've got an image deployment. So this is where you have an operating system image, and an OS image is simply referring to you have an operating system that has been pre-configured with applications and settings. So everything has already been set up exactly how you want it to be set up within an operating system. And you're installing that operating system with those settings onto multiple machines simultaneously. That's usually what you would do when you have an image deployment. You're deploying the image across the network generally to multiple machines within your company. So again, you don't have to walk around and do it one by one. You can just do it by deploying the image to all machines, and you've already previously set up how you want it to look exactly, what you want the operating system to look like. So that's why it says often used in corporate environments for standardized deployments. Everyone has the same deployment because you've set up that image as you want it prior to deploying it. And it requires specialized tools and network infrastructure. Of course, in order to do that over the network, that's going to need you to be properly set up for it. Now, the next one is a repair installation, which attempts to fix corrupted systems or files or boot issues without losing user data. So you're trying to fix your corrupt system files or boot issues without losing any user data. You're doing a repair installation. You're trying to fix your current OS. It's less common than clean installs, but can sometimes resolve specific problems. And then you've got remote network installation, which is where you're installing the operating system on a client machine over the network from a central server. So it's useful for managing large deployments or geographically dispersed systems, and it requires a network infrastructure and server setup with the operating system image, right? So that's also important to know about. So with that being said, let's get into some questions for this particular dot point. This question reads, your home computer has become sluggish and riddled with errors. You decide to reinstall the operating system to start fresh with a clean slate. Which of the following options would completely erase all of your data and settings while installing the latest operating system version and is appropriate for your computer configuration? A, upgrade the existing operating system. B, restore the computer to its factory settings using a recovery partition. C, perform a clean install of the operating system. D, deploy a pre-configured operating system image. Your answer coming in 3, 2, 1. Pause the video if you do need more time for this one. Here we go. The answer is a bit of a tricky one. There's a couple tricks in here. Here we go. The answer is C, perform a clean install of the operating system. Let's have a look at why we got that answer. So first of all, it says we want to reinstall the operating system to start fresh with a clean slate. Upgrade is not reinstalling, right? It's adding on additional features and it's updating essentially, right? Restore the computer to its factory settings using a recovery partition. You're going back to a version that you already previously had installed on your drive's partition. But we also want, where did it say? We want the latest operating system version. The old one on our partition is one that we have, and it will be like a clean slate, but it's not the latest one. So it's going to be one that we already put on there a while ago, right? It's not going to be the latest version. Perform a clean install? Yes, absolutely. We can get the most recent version of the operating system and simply do a clean install on our device to get a clean slate that is the most recent and up-to-date operating system. So that's the one we want to go with. Deploy a pre-configured operating system image. That sounds like it could be good, but this is where we got to choose not just an answer that could be right, but the most correct answer. So the phrasing here where it says start fresh with a clean slate, really technically a pre-configured operating system image isn't a clean slate because you've actually pre-configured it to have settings. It's not like the blank slate of a new freshly clean installed OS. It has settings that you've already changed. So by installing that, you're not going to have a clean slate. You're going to have like a slightly dirty slate, which is good if that's what you want, but for this particular question, it is not the most correct answer. So I hope that made sense. The next question, you suspect a recent software installation might be causing instability on your computer. However, you'd prefer to avoid completely wiping your data and starting fresh. Which option would be the most suitable to attempt repairing the system while minimizing the risk of data loss? A, perform a clean install of the operating system. B, restore the computer to its factory settings using a recovery partition. C, attempt a repair installation of the operating system. Or D, deploy a pre-configured operating system image over the network. Your answer coming in 3, 2, pause the video if you need to. 1, here we go. It is C, attempt a repair installation of the operating system. So again, a repair installation attempts to fix the issues, the corrupted files, etc., without overriding everything that you already had on there, so you don't necessarily have to start from scratch again. So important you know what that is. So again, my learning guide is at Journey to Cyber for the 1102, which is where all this is drawn from. If you're liking this, you'll love the learning guide. JourneyToCyber.com for that. Now I'll skip ahead over to the next one that we're going to look at, which is pretty much all of this: partitioning, drive format, upgrade considerations, and feature updates. All right, we're going to look at all of that coming up. Have a look at the content, and we'll do the questions at the end. Let's do it. Partitioning. When working with operating system installations and upgrades across various operating systems, you need to understand the two main partition table schemes. There's two you need to know about for your exam. There's the GUID partition table, or GPT, and master boot record, or MBR. This is crucial to understand. So there's some main differences between the two, which is really easy if you can get your head around these to be able to figure out what you want to use and when. So the first one is the GUID partition table, or GPT. This is the modern standard. So GPT is the newer and more advanced partitioning scheme. So the advantages of this one is it supports a massive number of partitions. You've got up to 128 per disk. The disk itself, it handles disks larger than 2.2 terabytes without limitations. It's more robust with data redundancy and better recovery options in case of corruption. And it has UEFI firmware compatibility, which is replacing the older BIOS. The disadvantages is it may not be compatible with older BIOS systems that require the master boot record, or MBR. So already we can see, right, a lot of advantages, not a lot of disadvantages. Really, the only reason we'd want to not use GUID, or GPT, is if you have an older one which simply isn't suited to this and can't use it. So that was really the only reason you'd want to use the only reason you would not want to use this. The other one is the Master Boot Record, or MBR. This is a legacy standard. So it is the older and more traditional partitioning scheme. The advantages, it's universally compatible with older BIOS systems. So again, if you do have an older system, maybe you want to use this. Disadvantages, it is limited to a maximum of 4 primary partitions per disk. It cannot handle disks larger than 2.2 terabytes without special techniques. It is less robust and offers limited data recovery options compared to GPT. So as we can see, generally, you'd want to use GPT. So you'd want to use GPT unless you're using one with a very old BIOS system that doesn't support UEFI, or you're dealing with limited disk sizes. But even then, you can use GPT with limited disk sizes because it can still accommodate for them. So really, you should use GPT unless it's an older system. So the next one is drive format. So drive format plays a crucial role in preparing storage drives for installation or upgrading operating system. So we have different file systems, and we should hopefully be familiar with these file systems, right, and what these looks like. So when we format a drive, we can format it in alignment with one of these file systems. We went through this previously, what these are. So NTFS, right, we're looking at Windows. We've already gone through that. We know NTFS is for Windows. We know FAT32 is an older compatible file system, but has a maximum size of 4 gigabytes. We know exFAT is widely compatible. We know APFS is the Apple file system, which is for Apple products such as iMacs, etc. And then we know ext is largely used on Linux. So in relation to this, what you need to know is when you're formatting a drive, you can choose which file which file type to format it as, and that will distinguish, generally you'll be doing that depending on what system you're using, how compatible you want it to be. So if you're only using Windows, sure, NTFS is good. And if you want those advanced capabilities when it comes to those security features and things to that effect, and you're using Windows, NTFS, sure. If you want to use it on Windows and then also on other operating systems, then you'd want to go with exFAT, right? So that's really going over what we did previously, but specifically in the context of formatting a drive, and just knowing that when you formatted a drive, when you do format a drive, you should choose the format which is most appropriate depending on what system you'll be using it on. All right, that's really the key there. When you do format a drive, you're preparing the drive for use by an operating system by erasing all the existing data and creating the necessary file system structure. So that's the other thing. You're erasing everything that's already on there when you format it. So make sure you back up your data if you have anything on there that you do want to keep and use. Other than that, like I said here, choosing the appropriate file system depends on the operating system. We've gone through that already. One of the key dot points, I think, as well, is considerations for diverse OS environments. So when you're installing multiple operating systems on the same machine, you need to select a file system with broad compatibility. So that's when we think about exFAT, right? Hopefully, we should have immediately jumped to exFAT when we're thinking about doing that. So if you have multiple operating systems on the same machine, right, different partitions with different operating systems, so you can boot either or, you need a file system that is going to be supported on both, which would be exFAT in that instance. The next one is upgrade considerations. So when you're upgrading, we need to make some considerations. Of course, you need to make sure that you back up your files and user preferences. Just in case anything goes wrong along the process, you got to make sure you are, in fact, doing that. Your application and driver support / backward compatibility. Always check the compatibility of your existing applications with the new operating system version. You want to make sure that you do your due diligence in checking the compatibility of everything. Right? You don't want to upgrade and then find out that some things that you really want to use aren't actually compatible with this new OS you've just upgraded to. You were really excited to upgrade, it's not compatible, now your hopes and dreams are crushed. Check compatibility, right? That's with everything. Everything listed here, drivers, software, etc. Make sure you check that before you upgrade. Hardware compatibility. Not all hardware components are compatible with every operating system version. Check the system requirements before you upgrade, of course. Make sure that you know what your hardware specifications are so that you can compare them against the minimum specifications of the version that you are going to be upgrading to. And then we've got feature updates. A feature update is an incremental improvement or addition to the existing operating system functionality. So feature updates give you things like new features, bug fixes, security patches, performance enhancements, etc. Most modern operating systems do offer automatic update mechanisms to ensure that you do consistently get the most up-to-date version of your operating system. And the product life cycle. So this refers to the stages that an operating system goes through from being released to when it is eventually discontinued. It typically consists of the following stages. Introduction, so it's launched with new features and functionalities. Growth, the operating system gains a wider adoption and receives frequent updates. It starts to mature. Maturity, the operating system is stable and receives security updates, but fewer new features. And then finally, decline. Support for the operating system eventually ends and security updates cease. All right, it's going down, not looking good. So that's the cycle. And then I think this is the final one. Considerations in a diverse operating system environment. So different operating systems do and are likely to have varying update schedules. Could be daily, weekly, monthly. Make sure you know what yours is. Security implications. If you have an out-of-date operating system, it is going to be vulnerable to security breaches. Make sure you prioritize updates for mature or declining stage operating systems. Really, for any of them, always should be prioritizing security updates. Testing updates. Consider testing critical updates on a non-critical system before deploying them to your main machines. That way, if something's going to go wrong, you can avoid losing all your data, right? And end-of-life management. Be aware of the end-of-life dates for your operating system in your environment. all the operating systems that you use in your environment and plan for migration to a supported operating system before end of life to maintain security and functionality. You want to move over before support stops being offered, because the second support stops being offered, maybe there's a new exploit, too bad, no one's going to help you with it, right? So that being said, let's do our questions for this one. This is the finishing off set of questions for this particular exam objective. Let's do it. The first question says, you're planning to format a new hard drive for your PC. You're considering using either GPT or MBR partitioning schemes. Both can be used for booting, but there are some key differences. Which option is best suited for a large capacity hard drive, which is over 2 terabytes, that you plan to partition into multiple sections for different purposes? For example, operating system and data storage. A, MBR, B, GPT, C, both GPT and MBR offer the same functionality for partitioning and booting. D, the choice between GPT and MBR doesn't impact the functionality of partitions, it's just a matter of personal preference. Pause the video if you need more time. Your answer coming in 3, 2, 1. Now, it is GPT. So again, you want that larger disk capacity. GPT is going to give you a larger disk capacity, right? For a larger capacity for that hard drive that you need, you're going to want to use GPT. We talked about the size limitations of MBR and why basically the only reason you'd want to use MBR is if you're using an older system, right? That's really the only reason you would. Next question reads, you need to format a new USB flash drive that you'll be using on various computers, including Windows and Mac. You want a file system that offers broad compatibility while still supporting large files over 4 gigabytes. Which option is the most suitable for this scenario? A, exFAT, B, NTFS, C, FAT32, or D, APFS? Pause the video if you need your time. Your answer coming up. 3, 2, 1. It is A, exFAT. Remember, exFAT is widely compatible and offers large storage sizes. It doesn't have those size limitations. So you should have known that. Hopefully we got that right, because we did cover that in a previous objective as well. Final question, you're planning to upgrade the operating system on your computer, but you also use a separate operating system such as Linux in a dual boot configuration. Which of the following is the least important step to take before proceeding with the upgrade? A, backing up all your data to an external drive or cloud storage. B, checking the system requirements for the new OS to ensure your hardware meets the minimum specifications. C, downloading and installing the latest drivers for your hardware components from the manufacturer's website. D, ensuring your OS is configured with optimal UX. Pause the video if you need more time. 3, 2, 1, here we go. The answer is D. So ensuring your OS is configured with optimal UX, which stands for user experience. Of course, making sure you have a device that is actually compatible with the new OS upgrade is more important than will people enjoy using it, right? So physical and software compatibility is more important than whether or not people enjoy using it, I guess. So look, I'm going to just make a move on because I'm going to have to get out of work soon. So if you want to see what that last question is, it's in my learning guide at journeytocyber.com for the A+ 1102 exam. I do have a learning guide that contains comprehensive notes, active recall questions, practice exam questions, just like you've seen in this video. This is just a snippet of what's available, and it's all broken down not only by exam objective, but also by every dot point within that exam objective too. So head over to journeytocyber.com. Here's what people said about my 1101 learning guide, and the 1102 one is so much better. They said, your learning guide is actually goated. I don't comment a lot, but it helps with organized information and helps me piece things together more easily. Update your notes, help me pass my test today. I downloaded your learning guide already, and I can see it will help immensely with studying. I tried other popular resources but struggled absorbing the material. Will you have one available for the 1102? That's what I'm talking about right now. Head on over to journeytocyber.com. That is journeytocyber.com to grab yours today. And again, active recall questions, practice examination questions with detailed answers, and comprehensive notes, all there for you at journeytocyber.com. If you grab it, you'll be as happy as this guy. And you'll notice, yes, I do have performance-based questions there as well. It's $30 for those, but it says A. That means Australian dollars. That means if you're in America, you're in for a bloody bargain, mate, because our money is chump change to you guys. So that's probably like, what, 15, maybe 18 bucks for you. So that's pretty good. For the learning guide, it's 75 Australian dollars, which is probably maybe like 50 American. I don't know. I'd have to do the conversion. But if you get it, you'll be as happy as this guy. If you don't, that's all good. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye.